And with that, we welcome you inside our Big Ten Network studio in this Tuesday Coaches Press Conference edition of Big Ten Live. I'm Rick Pizzo. 4 coaches set to speak for you over the next 90 minutes. Of course, we will hear plenty from James Franklin and Ryan Day as those head coaches get their team set for their respective matchup coming up this weekend at Beaver Stadium. We'll also hear from Michael Locksley. Maryland has a bye this weekend, but the Terps bowl eligible after the win over Northwestern. Locks has that team trending in the right direction. Mickey Jospeh and company coming off a bye. They will be at home as Nebraska welcomes the red-hot Illini to Memorial Stadium. The first man we will hear from is the first man you see on your screen. Penn State head man James Franklin addressing the media earlier today as we take you to State College to listen in.
So, like always, appreciate everybody coming out, either here in person or online, covering Penn State football. Appreciate that. I want to start by encouraging and thanking the fans from last week for how they showed up and supported. I'd like to start by encouraging them to do the same thing this week. It's going to be important that we have a significant home field advantage. I'd also like to send my thoughts to the family of former PSU linebacker Bonnie Beju. Obviously, that was traumatic news to find out that we lost Bonnie, and I send on behalf of our entire football family and university our thoughts and prayers. Kind of reviewing the previous game, when you talk about kind of the stats that we talk about every single week, the turnover battle, we were even. The penalty battle, we won. And to me, this was significant. There was a bunch of this that I don't feel like it was talked about a whole lot, but Minnesota entered the game #1 nationally in fewest penalties. So winning that was important. And again, that'd be another kind of opportunity to reinforce the impact that the fans had on the game, especially when you're playing an offense that is designed to stay on schedule. I think that had a major factor in the game. Drive start battle, we lost by 1 yard. The sack battle, we won that. The explosive play battle, our offense was at 22%, so we won that on offense. We missed our goal on defense. And then specifics, players of the game on offense, we had quarterback Sean Clifford. Clifford was also the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. On defense, winner was Curtis Jacobs, linebacker. On special teams, linebacker Dominic DeLuca. The D-Squad Players of the Week, Ben Hartman, offensive lineman, and then I know these are a lot of names, but our coaches really felt that our scout wide receivers really did a good job and prepared us. That's Jan Mollert, Jason Estrella, Anthony Ivey, Jake Spencer, Mason Stahl, Tyler Johnson, Caden Saunders, Patrick Williams, and Robert Rossi all did a tremendous job, and I tried to talk them out of listing so many guys, but they felt strongly about it. Defensively, Devon Townley and Christian Driver. And then on special teams, Jason Estrella. So that's kind of reviewing some of the game. The last few points I would say is I just was very pleased with the entire organization and how we responded, players, staff, coaches. I thought P.J. Mustafer's leadership and vocal presence all week long in meetings and practice, I think was really important, and I thought he made a huge impact. I thought we played fast and aggressive. You watched on tape, we were back to playing fast and aggressive. And then a couple other things, again, that I don't know if this was covered much with the media or not. But Minnesota's offense on third down was ranked #1 nationally at 66%. We held them to 15%, 2 of 13. That was huge. We talked about getting off the field on defense on third down and staying on the field on offense. And then Minnesota's defense was also ranked #1 in the country nationally, holding other offenses to 22%, and we were 46% on the day. And then Dom DeLuca's block punt was a big play. Just a few opportunities I mentioned for growth. Got to get rid of the pre-snap and post-snap penalties. We had 2 pre-snap, a false start, and a defensive offside, so very similar penalties. And then we had an unsportsmanlike conduct post-whistle. So those were the big things. And then probably the last thing is we got to start fast on offense. That's in practice, that's in jog throughs, and then obviously that's in games. You know, when you talk about Ohio State and Ryan Day, obviously a ton of respect for what they've been able to do for a long time. They've been doing it for a long time at Ohio State. But a ton of respect for them and what they do and how they go about their business. Offensive coordinator Ryan Day / Kevin Wilson. Obviously, they do a great job, got a ton of weapons. Some people are saying their quarterback is leading, you know, the Heisman votes at this stage. But they're challenging not only through scheme, but also the weapons they have. The quarterback, C.J. Stroud, wide receiver Marvin Harrison, the other wide receiver Emeka Buku, but we can mention a number of guys. Running back Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, and then they got an offensive lineman, a number of offensive linemen, but the one guy that jumps out is DeJuan Jones, who we recruited as well. He's 6'8", 359 pounds, and very light on his feet, which is kind of crazy to say. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who we know very well. Jim actually came and visited us here years ago. I think he was at Duke at the time. Has done a really good job going in there and being aggressive, in terms of scheme, taking advantage of their personnel. You look at Ronnie Hickman, who we recruited heavily out of New Jersey. Seems like he's been playing there forever. Teron Vincent, who we know out of Baltimore. Tommy Eichenberg, the linebacker. JT Tuiamola, I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize. And then Denzel Burke, the corner. So they got guys at, you know, really each level of the defense. And then on special teams coordinator Parker Fleming has done a nice job. You know, they play a ton of guys, you know, starters on special teams. They always have. And if you look, their punter is an Australian punter, does a really good job. That's something we're going to have to be prepared for, is the variety of kicks that a lot of these Australian punters are able to do in terms of spreading the ball all over the field. And then their punt returner, Emeka Buku, again, who we mentioned earlier. So a lot of information, a lot of things that we need to get worked on. Obviously, today's our first real day of practice. We did have Sunday. Monday's our off day from a planning perspective, and then today. So we'll have a better idea later in the week, but that's a start. So open up the questions.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then Mark Wigenrich.
Afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. What did you see from your team during practice last week, and can a performance like Saturday's build momentum going into a week like this?
Yeah, I think so, and it needs to, right? You know, we're playing a really good opponent at home. We did some really good things to build on last week that we should have confidence from and momentum from, and we need to build on it. We need to get better, you know, today in practice. We need to get better all week in terms of our preparation and how we practice and how we coach. And then the same thing, you know, with the game on Saturday. We're going to have to play better this Saturday than we did this past week. So, yeah, I think there's a ton of stuff to build on from last week. There's a bunch of stuff watching that tape to be excited about and to show the team, and we got to build on it for sure.
Mark Wigenrich, all Penn State, and Frank Bodani.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Good, thanks. 2018, after that 2018 Ohio State game, you outlined the steps that Penn State had to take to become elite. Where are you on that timeline right now?
Yeah, you know, I think obviously a lot of things have changed since then. You know, I think obviously we talked a lot this offseason about, new president in Dr. Ben DePuti and new athletic director in Pat Kraft. That factors into all of this. There's no doubt about it. I think there's things within our program that you look at, whether it's from a development standpoint, whether it's a facility standpoint, whether it's a nutrition standpoint, whether it's recruiting, all the things that you talk about in terms of building a program. I think some areas, we have made significant progress in, and others we still have work to do. So I think in a lot of ways we've taken some steps in the right direction, but there's still some areas that we need to get resolved, and that's why I think I've voiced this over and over again, the excitement I have for the leadership that we have in those two positions, and that's with total respect and appreciation for the past as well.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record, and Mike Gross.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Good. How are you?
Real good. Could you evaluate your pass rush so far overall? Are you coming up short at all in any part of that? And if so, how do you think that can get better as we go here?
Yeah, I think it really kind of depends. I think things can skew that, or if you're just looking at stats and not necessarily basing it off the film, I think things can skew that. If you're playing a team that's going to run the ball 90% of the time, and how they are built and how they are wired, that's going to impact your stats. You play somebody who's going to throw it every single down, that's going to impact your stats as well. So I think overall, our ability to affect the quarterback, whether it's through sacks, pressures, or tight coverage, has been good. I think you look at our completion percentage against our defense, that is not just because of our defensive backs. That's also because of pressure and making the quarterback uncomfortable in the pocket. So would we like more flat-out sacks? Yes. Would we like more tackles for a loss? Yes. But overall, I think when you evaluate the whole picture, pretty good.
Mike Gross, Lancaster Newspapers, and then Donnie Collins.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. When you mentioned that Sean was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, then there was sort of a long pause there, and I wonder
I think that may have just been your Wi-Fi, Mike.
Oh, okay, all right. Is this the backup quarterback is always popular with the fans? That's sort of a football cliche. Is there anything about this situation that's a little different? Do the fans, some reason, this is unique to Penn State, why they maybe don't appreciate Sean as much as you do?
Yeah, I'm spending my energy, all of my energy, on getting ready to play a really good Ohio State team. I'm pouring all my energy into loving and supporting my players and staff, and focusing on things that I can control and impact. That's where all my energy is focused on, is supporting my staff, supporting and loving the players, and focusing on getting ready for a really good Ohio State team on offense, defense, and special teams, and those other things I'm not spending any time on, because, to be honest with you, unless you have something for me or somebody else, I don't see how I can impact that.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, then Corey Geiger.
How you doing, James?
Hey, Donnie, how are you, buddy?
Pretty good. Parker.
What does your shirt say?
The Blues.
Oh, the Blues.
Yeah, I got it in English. Parker said after the game that you guys that he felt that the offense runs its best when it's in its tempo, when it's doing good work in the tempo offense. And I was wondering, what are some of the things that kind of lead to that for you guys, lead to you kind of having success there? Some of the outside ingredients outside of just getting the play in fast and snapping it quickly.
Yeah, I think, when we're in a rhythm, whether it's in games or whether we're in a rhythm in practice going against our defense, we've had a ton of conversation about that and specifically with Sean and the receivers about it. They feel strongly about that. But there's also a fine line, right? If you go fast and you go 3 and out, then it puts your defense in a more challenging position as well. So there's a balance of that. I thought one of the things that we did best on Saturday was just mixing tempo, mixing cadence, mixing scheme, whether it's move the pocket, whether it's run, whether it's play action pass, whether it's misdirection, whether it's, trick plays. I thought we had a really good mix of keeping them kind of off balance and uncomfortable. And the funny thing is, what I try to say all the time is, say you tweak a run scheme, a counter, or say you run a reverse. We ran a reverse and we got 6 yards, but to me, there's a lot more impact than just the 6 yards. It's like if you run a reverse, people aren't happy with a 6-yard play because you're thinking you're running a reverse for an explosive play. But 6 yards is a pretty good average. But the other thing it does, it gives the coordinator something to be concerned about, and it gives the defenders, specifically the linebackers, and when you're playing a team like Minnesota, who they're a quarters team and the safeties are really involved in the run support, it gives those guys pause, whether it's reverses, play action pass. So now when you go back to your normal runs, they're not fitting it the same way with the same confidence and speed as they would without those plays being run. So I think there's a ton of value in that, and to me, that's what we did best on Saturday, and we need to continue to do.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, and then Johnny McGonigal.
James, this is kind of a long-winded question about roster construction.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
You've always competed well against Ohio State, and they're kind of the team at the top, so you've got to do things to compete well against them. You'd said earlier, if you play a team that runs 90%, stats will be different. I'm just curious, how much concerted effort over the years has been, hey, we got to do what Ohio State does. We got to be able to stop it. But then if you play other teams, maybe like a Michigan that runs more, is your roster always set up for every other kind of team? How difficult is that when you're constructing a roster?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And I think that's one of the things that maybe frustrates people. And I'm not talking specific to Penn State. I'm saying in general, there are certain weeks where you feel like you match up better, whether it's scheme, or there's certain weeks whether you match up, whether it's personnel, better than other weeks. There's no doubt about that. You may have an injury at a position or two, and that position is where their strength is. There's a lot of things that factor into it. But to your point, that's the challenge, right? You got to be able to, you got to be able to feel like you can line up and match up from a skill and athleticism perspective with an Ohio State 1 week, and then say you make it to the Big Ten championship like we did, and you play Wisconsin. That's a very different animal that you're getting ready for, and you have to either have the depth and the diversity within your personnel to do it. I think you guys remember, in the past, we would have Kevin Givens playing D tackle, and then we may play Wisconsin or someone like that and play Kevin that week at defensive end to get bigger, So either having the personnel to be able to make some moves like that, or obviously some scheme things that you're going to have to do different to put your players in the best position to be successful. No different than these teams that play from a 4-2-5 shell. They're playing with a nickel almost predominantly on the field, and then you go play, a team that's going to try to play smash mouth football, and you've never played with a 3 linebacker on the field. Like I know that was a big discussion Saturday as we had those 3 linebackers on the field. Well, that made a ton of sense against Minnesota and what they do. So I think your point is a really good one, and that's one of the complexities or the subtle things that's challenging, especially in a conference like the Big Ten, where maybe you have a little bit maybe more diversity in how people are built throughout our conference, where a lot of conferences, pretty much everybody's running a similar style throughout the entire conference. So I think that's a good question, and I think it's a fair one, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build a team that can do both, which is easier said than done.
Johnny McGonigal, Penn Live, then we'll come here in the room.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, John. How are you, man?
Good. Given what you have with Joey, Kalen, Johnny, everyone in that secondary, is this the most confident you felt in a secondary going into a matchup with Ohio State, who's, historically in your tenure has had really good quarterbacks and wide receivers and a good passing game?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that because I hadn't really kind of thought about it, but I think your point is that, maybe you could make the argument the strength of our defense, is in the secondary. If you were ranking, kind of all 3 levels, that's a strength of ours for sure. We have a lot of confidence in those guys, and we're going to need it. But I also know that these guys are talented enough up front and at tight end and at running back that, if you put too much of an emphasis on that, they can beat you the other way too by running the ball. So they do a good job of being balanced. I think at the end of the day, their trigger man, is what makes them go. He's the one that distributes the ball to all those different playmakers and does a really good job doing it. He throws on the run as well as he throws from the pocket, which is somewhat unusual. Again, he's leading the Heisman race for a reason. So, talented guy that we got a ton of respect for.
Mark?
Hey, James.
How we doing?
I'm doing great. A year and a half ago, not even, when Katron and Nick committed to Penn State, you guys had a loaded running back room with guys who had significant eligibility remaining. What did it say about them to be willing to join that room? And how fortunate do you feel now that you took 2 kids when you look out in the game last week and they're your only 2 healthy scholarship running backs? Thanks.
Yeah, to be honest with you, that's really how, we want to be at every position. We want to not only have the depth and talent to compete week in and week out, but we also want to recruit guys that aren't scared, based on the room that they're coming into, that they're choosing Penn State because of the academics and the campus and the environment and the culture, and they say, look, I'm gonna come to Penn State and I'm gonna compete, and if I plan on playing at the next level, that's gonna prepare me for that and get me used to that. So yeah, I think that was a factor for sure. I loved how those guys approached it. It never really impacted them. But to be honest with you, the schools that they were being recruited by, it was pretty much similar at all those places. So that kind of takes it out of the equation for the most part.
In the back end.
Coach, you kind of already touched a little bit on this on Abdul starting on Saturday. Is that a lineup that you think has more long-term legs, or does this continue to be a week-to-week decision?
Yeah, to your point, I think I kind of said that. It really depends on who you play. If you look around college football and the NFL, most people are not playing with 3 linebackers on the field because they're in 10 or 11 personnel. And now, okay, it's great to have a linebacker that's really good at stopping the run, but now he's not being asked to stop the run. He's being asked to cover Parker Washington out in space. So it's all based on what we need to do to not only get our best players on the field, but also our best players in the field based on the matchup and the scheme and the personnel that we're playing.
Tyler?
James, you needed to do some mixing and matching on the offensive line on Saturday with some guys coming to the sideline, some guys not available. I'm curious what you felt you learned about that unit over the course of those 4 quarters, and specifically a couple guys who had to step up in Vega and then Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce, I think you guys know, we love Bryce. We view Bryce as a starter for us. He's getting really starter reps. If you look at it between him and the guys that are playing on Saturday, he's getting starter type reps. So we're very impressed with him, and he's playing both tackle and guard at a high level. And then also when we get into the heavy sets, he's able to get in there at tight end. So he's doing a lot of things and doing a lot of things well for us. Vega, obviously that situation, that's not something that probably we anticipated going into the game, but it played out that way. He's a guy that we got, there's a lot of excitement in our building about. He's got an awesome way about him. He's always got a smile on his face. I had a freshman check-in meeting with all the offensive players yesterday in my office, and he was walking out and kind of dapped me up on the way out and was just talking about how awesome Saturday was. He's just one of those kids. He's super appreciative of being at Penn State. He's very coachable, powerful, strong, athletic. We think he's got a really bright future. We'd like to try to redshirt him if we can, but we may not be able to. And he's also, again, you don't say this very often, but he's strong, powerful, and he's extremely light on his feet. And he's 340 pounds and looks like he's 315, and those guys, I think are really important to have up front with some of the matchups that we have. Back to kind of some of the questions I've gotten. You play a team that's maybe undersized and athletic compared to a team that's massive. Having those interchangeable parts are important, and having somebody with that type of girth and intelligence and power to match up inside is really valuable. And he's one of these guys. He's not trying to be 340. He's just naturally that's kind of who he is. And I think we've all seen over the years the guys that are, trying to be something that really their genetics tell them they're not supposed to be. Either they're trying to stay smaller and their body's trying to get bigger and they don't want to embrace that, or vice versa.
Obviously, you don't want to have turnovers in any game.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good.
Obviously, you don't want to have turnovers in any game, but Ohio State had 6 turnovers last week they capitalized on, and then last year you guys had that scoop and score you lost to them. So in big games like this, how much more important is avoiding turnovers?
No, I think turnovers are important every single week. It's one of the most important stats in football, that and explosive plays. I think to your point, obviously the bigger the game that people talk about, the bigger the game, then those stats are magnified. Explosive plays are magnified. Turnovers are magnified because the margin of error is smaller in those types of games. So it's always important, but obviously it's magnified in games like this.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. You talked a little bit about roster construction and everything. How much value added is a defensive coordinator like Manny Diaz in a matchup like this, where you're going to be aggressive, you're going to be chasing the ball, and it's just going to be available more because it's going to be in the air more?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I want to make sure I'm understanding where you're coming from with this question.
Yeah, just sort of what is the value added of his mentality, like the aggressiveness and attacking the ball, trying to force more turnovers rather than maybe sitting back, playing coverage, being comfortable sort of in a complacent situation?
Yeah, I guess I don't view it the way you're communicating it. I mean, you look at Iowa, you could say Iowa is a team that plays the way you just described, and they've played as good a football as anybody in the country and created as many turnovers as anybody in the country. So it really just kind of depends on your style and what you like in terms of how it is built and how it is called. But to your point, obviously we're challenging routes more, in terms of the balls that are, getting broken up, hopefully forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball longer. So in theory, we should be able to be more disruptive on the quarterback with sacks and pressures and things like that. So it really just depends. I think there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to be successful, whether it's on offense, defense, or special teams. We've done it both ways and been successful both ways. So you can make arguments, but it really just comes down to, probably preference. I prefer good defense and good offense and good special teams, and however you get to it, you get to it. And that could be based on the coordinator's approach and mentality. It also has to factor in your personnel, because there may be a year that our personnel is more suited for this or for that, and you have to be able to, have some flexibility within your system to tweak it. But at the end of the day, what's great is the way Manny wants to play, and the way we want to play really matches up with our personnel, right now. So that helps.
Ben.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Ben, good. How are you?
I've never seen you from this side of the room before, so I just wanted to.
Usually over there, right?
I wanted to try something different. Sean was talking this morning about how weeks like this are the sorts of things that can change your season. And as much as we want to know everything every week, there's an inevitability that we all understand that. How do you reconcile the emotions of benchmarking games with the success you can have the rest of the season around them? And sort of, on the one hand, if I look at your schedule, I go, there are a lot of wins still to be had. If someone else who's being more critical of it says, well, maybe they don't beat Michigan and who knows what happens this weekend, how do you kind of balance the emotions internally that come with those two different kinds of games?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where our process, we lean into so much, because that's the challenge, right? Everybody's being told from every different source, whether it's friends or family members or social media or sending the players into a press conference, the type of questions they get. They're constantly being told, whether it's directly or indirectly, what's a big game, what's not, what's a good win, what's not. And we just try to avoid that as much as we possibly can and stay consistent with how we go about things, because that can have a huge impact. That can have a huge impact on you making certain games too big based on what you're being told, or overlooking someone else. So, we just try to lean into that process as much as we possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean it's like we're putting our head in the sand and we don't recognize. Like, we recognize, the players recognize, we talk about it. They know what it is. So it's not like, it's not like we're sitting here trying to, it's not like we're trying to like deceive them, like, try to send them on a path that is not as real and accurate. Okay, let's recognize what it is, and then let's get back to our process and what we need to do to be successful. And over my time, both as a player and as a assistant, and as a coordinator, as a head coach, I feel like that's been the best process. And I think it's magnified. I think we've talked about this before. I think it's magnified in today's college football, specifically the way the playoffs are structured, and at a place like Penn State, it's different. So those things I think are really important.
Bob.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, Bob. How are you, man?
I'm good. You referenced C.J. Stroud as the trigger man of the offense, obviously, and he's, 70% completion, arm strength, all that stuff, release. How challenging on the practice field this week will it be to try and even replicate for your secondary and your linebackers what he can do just to kind of get them up to speed, what to expect on Saturday night?
Yeah, I don't think you really can. I mean, obviously we do that. Like when we build the scout teams each week, you're literally saying, okay, this guy should play him and this guy should play him. But, there's not too many people in the country, that have a quarterback like that, let alone a quarterback like that on the scout team. So, so that's hard to pull off. And that's where, trying to replicate it as much as you possibly can in practice, but then also doing some of the good on good work every single day so they are getting the speed of it. That's helpful too, but there's no way to completely replicate it week in and week out.
T. Frank.
Hey, James, over here.
Hey, T.
I want to get your opinion on the phrase "establish the run." It is it's been in football for as long as football's been around. Analytics have challenged the notion of that. And I just wanted to get your idea of maybe where you started and if your thoughts on that have changed over time.
Well, I don't know if I've ever kind of approached it or looked at it as established the run. I've always believed, and I think I've said this in here multiple times too, in balance. But then I've also kind of describe balance differently than maybe a lot of people do, and balance doesn't mean you're going to run the ball 50% of the time and throw the ball 50% of the times. It means you have the ability to, in most situations, be able to run or pass, effectively. That's, to me, the important thing. And then that puts you in position to set up the play action passes and things like that. So I've never really talked about kind of that as being a philosophy of ours. It's been more about having enough balance and having enough diversity within our offense that we can do either and be able to play a style that we have to with whatever the game dictates to win. There's been years where we've been really explosive, but we couldn't run the ball when we needed to in 4-minute offense. And that's the hard part, right? The best ones, the elite ones, are able to do all of it. They're able to run when everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run, and be able to throw when you need to throw to win. So that's kind of how I've always looked at it, more than necessarily establishing.
Last two questions, Neil, and then Audrey.
Neil?
Hey, James.
Hey, buddy.
I know I have tunnel vision, but did you see the comment or hear about the comment that Harbaugh made yesterday about you, and do you have any reaction to it?
No, I don't.
Audrey?
Nope, I don't. No. Ohio State.
Guess that was it, Neil. That was it. Yeah, I'm good. I wanted to go back to what Mark asked you about.
Just so you know, I was saying no, I don't have a comment.
To the 365-day-a-year competition, and you'd said the comment in the offseason that the more yeses you get in those things, the more you tend to see it on Saturdays.
The more wins is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah. And when you kind of look at that, if you had a wish list of things that you would want what's at the top of that list in terms of facilities right now?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about. I think you guys asked me some of these things last week as well. I think Ben may have asked me something similar. I said I'm more than happy to talk about those things in the off season. Most of them, I mean, you've heard them. You've heard them enough, and you've heard them before. But again, right now that does not help us or help our players, beat Ohio State on Saturday. We're not going to solve those problems before Saturday. So,
thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
Yep, thanks for coming during our bye week. Appreciate you guys, your interest. The Northwestern game, having a chance to review it. Again, we come in and we've got a lot of guys missing, but we saw some young guys step up really big for us. Guys like Roman Hemby, who really helped take some pressure off our young quarterback, Billy Edwards. You saw guys like Caleb Wheatland coming in, not having Jay-Sean Barham, and really taking some meaningful reps. A hard-fought game like we thought it would be. We're 6-2, but still aren't playing our best football. And to me, that's kind of the encouraging thing for us, is that to be 6-2 at the kind of the midway point for us now. We've been going 12 straight weeks, 4 weeks of camp, 8 straight games, and this this bye week couldn't have come at a better time for us in an opportunity to get healthy and get some guys back, which we feel we'll be able to do the next couple of weeks. I feel like we've got a really hungry group of guys that are excited about bowl eligibility, but understand that this is kind of our standard, and that I know they like to have a lot more than just become a bowl eligible team, and that's what will drive us as we work this week. We'll have 3 days on the field. We're starting today where we'll do a lot of fundamental work. We'll get a lot of young players, the developmental work necessary to help continue their growing in our program. And then still a couple of days to work on Wisconsin to get a jump start there. They're also in the bye week as well, so there won't be much new video for us to evaluate come Sunday. And then give those guys Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, which will give them a total of about 5 days away from football, and get back in here next Monday back on our regular normal weekday schedule to prepare to go up to Madison for a great opportunity. With that, I open up for questions.
Mike, going into the bye week being bowl eligible, I assume that this weekend you guys are gonna have a lot more opportunity to recruit and bring players in and stuff like that. What does being bowl eligible entering the bye do as far as boosting recruiting?
I mean, the recruiting piece, we've seen it continue to get better with each week. I'm well aware that in this area, when we generate the momentum that shows the trajectory of where our program is headed, that's really what a lot of the guys in this area want to see. They want to see is Maryland football real. As we've painted the vision of where we want to go, I think they're seeing us on track with the vision that we've been able to go out and show recruits. This opportunity does give us a chance. It'll be my first time going on the road this season. I'll get a chance to go out and hit a couple places on Friday, and then get back here and get back to work. So winning, bowl eligibility definitely are huge factors in recruiting, but we know it's not the end-all, be-all for us, but it's definitely it's got us in the minds of some of the top guys in this area at least.
Coach, now that you are bowl eligible, at the bye week, is there a point where you can kind of reset expectations with these 4 regular season games left, and then knowing you have that 5th game as well?
I think the big thing for us is to stay right on course with we treat every week as an individual season. What we'll do with the bye week this week is really go back to the fundamentals of the game. And to me, that's when you get better fundamentally, individually, you get better as a team. And so we'll really take that approach, kind of how we did going into the bowl game a year ago, that let's work on doing the fundamental things better. And we'll get into the scheme stuff. We'll obviously steal a few days on Wisconsin to get us a jump start. But, I think, for us, it's just the next game. For us, which we don't have one this week, but we'll put all of our attention into Wisconsin, and we'll just focus on that. And everything else usually takes care of itself when you just win Monday through Friday.
Hey, Coach. At this point in the season, I want to ask you, do you see any, what type of improvements have you seen in Taulia Tagovailoa's game compared to last year? What are some things you feel like he has improved on this year?
I mean, I think, and I've said this before, it's the emotional maturity that he's shown. He'll be the first to tell you that he's a perfectionist in how he likes to approach it. And when things don't go his way, sometimes he can let a bad play linger. And I think he's really embraced getting back to neutral as quickly as he possibly can. Obviously, with the help of all of us, we all work to try to get back to neutral. When something good happens, we want to keep playing. When something bad happens, we want to just keep focused and keep playing and not dwell on it. And I've seen him do that a little better this year.
And I want to ask, Dante Trader and Bo Bray came into this season. They had to step into some major roles at the safety spot. How do you think they've handled that at this point?
Yeah, I think both those guys have done a tremendous job, at least from the leadership that comes with playing that position. The safety position is kind of the quarterback of the defense. I always talk about being strong right up the middle of your team, the center, the quarterback, the Mike linebacker, the free safety. And both those guys have displayed, tremendous leadership at a young age. They've done a really good job in the communication piece. We haven't had as many of the big plays that happen when everybody's not on the same page on the back end, which is a testament to those guys and the way they prepare and the way they take the coaching. So really proud of the effort. they'll be the first to tell you, though, there's still a lot of things to improve upon. And I mean, that's if there's anything that comes out of the messaging is that, we're 6-2 and we're not playing our best. And just imagine if we can get some things cleaned up and really, finish this thing the right way.
Hey, Coach, at the beginning of the season, you called the offensive line the most improved unit on the team. How do you think that's played out? And then also last game against Northwestern, Mason Lunsford wasn't on the field for a lot of those opening series. Can you talk about what went into that decision?
Yeah, the O-line is our most improved unit. I think anybody that has watched us play this year has seen the development of the run game, and it's been needed. Obviously, with Leah going down, to take pressure off of a young quarterback, running the ball is something you want to be able to do. To create balance in how people defend you, you have to show that you can do the things that you hadn't done maybe well before. And so those guys and the experience they've gained over the last few years of being in the system, you're starting to see it come to fruition in that when we were tied and we needed to take the lead, we run a basic dual play, which is a downhill run where we double team people and it goes for 75, a one-play drive. Shows the confidence we have in our guys up front. I think they're getting more and more confident, and it helps our team create the balance as well as show the necessary toughness to play in the Big Ten, because you still win in the Big Ten in the trenches. And I think we've finally gotten to the point where our guys have developed the experience and then the mental and physical toughness to give us a chance to have success.
Hey, Coach. Does it mean anything extra to you seeing your team clinch bowl eligibility on a day when you had a lot of adversity to overcome in terms of injuries?
The bowl eligibility is the byproduct of what we do on the field. And so the thing I'm always a little happy about, which is why I was, kind of disappointed in how I reacted to winning a few weeks ago. We played Indiana, is that, winning is really hard. And, anytime you have a chance to win, and this team has shown the ability to fight through adversity. I mean, we haven't had a lead in a game where we just felt comfortable. We haven't had one of those games where we can play a ton of players because things have just gone the way we scripted it to go. And to me, I think that shows tremendous character, because this team has had to come from behind in a few games. They've been in some tough, hard fourth quarter battles, and those things are what kind of make you. And so I like that part of it more than I do the fact that we're bowl eligible, is that you're starting to see the fruits of, the work we've put in to develop this type of culture really come to fruition.
I'm sure the bye week isn't necessarily a week off for you per se, but when Saturday comes around and you don't have a game, do you get an opportunity to watch the other games around the country? And if you do, how much of that is just from a fan's perspective and how much of it is from a coaching/preparation perspective?
Yeah, this weekend I actually have a community service project where I'm doing a mental health seminar here on campus. But I do enjoy watching football. The problem is, as a coach, you don't watch it for enjoyment. I look at formation. I look at the coverage. I say what play they run. It's hard to enjoy it and look at it like a fan, because I'm constantly analyzing and trying to formulate ideas or thoughts of things that I saw that they did well, the timing of a play call. That was a great call at that time, storing it all. So I watch football probably a little different than the average fan, but it's what I enjoy doing.
On Saturday, I saw the Jordan McNair family engaged with all the fans coming in near their foundation table up around section 23. Do you have any perspective on how the Jordan family received the honor on the field and whether or not that had a positive field for them?
I haven't talked to Marty or Tanya about that. I have a close personal relationship, obviously, with the family. I do know that for all of us, there's still players on this team that were here doing Jordan McNair's passing, and so there's not a day that goes by that in our building we see the Jordan McNair offensive line room that they don't think about him. I know as a parent that has lost a child, how tough it is when these type of days or these type of events happen. Marty and Tanya are warriors for the way they've embraced the adversity of what's happened to their son and paying it forward through the foundation. And to me, that's the most rewarding piece, is paying it forward.
Mike, you addressed Talia's growth earlier. Any updates on his health, and if you could walk us through the process between now and Wisconsin as far as his, what you're going to look for?
Yeah, the expectation is he should be available to play in the Wisconsin game. This week it's a game time decision still. We expect him to participate in practices as much as he can do. I mean, it's a day-to-day deal because it's about how his body feels. It's about the strengthening. He's done a ton of rehab work last week. He'll get a ton of it this week as well as next week. And so for us, it's mostly trying to get him back into conditioning, limiting how much we do with him early in the week to see how his body continues to respond. But the expectation is that Leah should be back in as close to 100% like he was prior to the Indiana game.
And to follow up, last year, heading into Halloween, you said that you might not answer the door with the 3-game losing streak. What sort of, asking for a friend, what sort of candy will be handed out at the Locksley house? Any king-size Snickers?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a kind of a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of kids, man. I mean, so what we're going to do is we're throwing a Halloween party on this Wednesday at Jones Hill House for our players and then our kids on our staff, which, this is a pretty fertile staff, it seems to be. We got a lot of kids under the age of 7 and it continues to grow. So we'll probably do our Halloween party on Wednesday this week because with the players being off the weekend, we're trying to do it a little early. So we'll celebrate it a little early. What type of candy will I pass out? I mean, it's hard to get in through that gate sometimes, and there's not a lot of kids in my neighborhood, so I'll try to pass it out mostly here at the football complex.
What's your go-to candy?
Bye week to get a little healthier, clean things up in all areas. It's beneficial to have this week just because that I hope it helps us down the stretch because we got 5 games back-to-back in a tough, physical Big Ten conference. So my thing is talking to the team that we gotta match our opponent physicality and starting this week with Illinois. Illinois' 17 ranked team is a well-deserved ranking. They have a really physical rushing game with Chase Kid. Chase Brown Kid. He's a really good runner, but they're really good on defense. They top in the country in every category. They have a really good scheme. They're well coached and they stick to their guns. So this week, we're going to need our fans on this one. We're going to need our fans to be loud and help us out a little bit. Questions?
Mickey, can you give an update on Nick Henry?
Nick's going to be out. Nick's going to be out.
Is he out for the year?
He's out for the year.
What kind of, was it a knee, ankle, leg, or what type of injury?
Knee.
With injuries, real quick too, will you get Brock Bando back? What's Kevin Williams' situation? I know it's time.
Kevin's rehabbing right now, and so is Bando, but Bando's closer than Kevin.
Mickey, the last time you guys had a bye, you were going into the bye off of lost to Oklahoma, and now you're coming in off 2 good performances and almost winning on the road in the Big Ten. I mean, did it feel different? Did it change how you guys kind of worked during the bye now that you're finding the success?
Well, we had to get him healthy. We had to get him some rest. I understand what Casey said in his presser after the game. He needed to rest his body. So what we try to do is be smart with him, during the bye week, and get him out there, but also, take the pads off and take the hitting off him. Okay, I'm done.
What makes their pass defense so good? Why are they so good?
Well, my dad always says men and women lie, numbers don't. So their number proved that they're pretty good. They're top 5 in every category, and it's a really sound defense. They don't do much, but what they do it very well. Very well. They do it good.
Because they've got both sacks and they've intercepted, I think, 12 passes, which means they're kind of doing both things. That can sometimes be rare. Is there something that they're doing well to get all the interceptions?
Well, like I said, they don't do much. So they go, you got this man and you're going to be over this center and let's play football. And it's simple, but like I said, they do it well and they well coach with their technique. So their technique is really good.
After the game that Trey put on film, I mean, how much are you expecting teams to really go out of their way to make sure that doesn't happen again? How do you combat that with some extra time to think about it?
Well, if you look at it, you had a really good game, but you would think that Illinois they're gonna do what they do, and they play man coverage, and they might try to bracket him, but I'm sure he's going to get more attention for the game that he had.
Anthony Grant's numbers have been down the last couple of games, but is that more of a concern about blocking in front of him and just sort of how those games have played out? Or what do you feel about Anthony and kind of getting him going down the stretch?
Well, we got to get him going. We got to do a better job up front, blocking and finding plays that we're comfortable blocking and finding plays that he's comfortable running. So we got to do a better job as a coaching staff to get that done. And we worked on that. The coordinator stayed in this week off the road from recruiting, so they worked on that. So maybe we can get this thing going this week. We got to get him going. You're right.
Mickey, how do you feel about the offensive line after the bye week? Did they get a chance to regroup a little bit, and are you feeling a little better about them?
Well, we beat up. We beat up front. We beat up. We down a couple of starters, but I feel good about them. I feel good about the bye week they had, and I felt good about their practice this morning. So they still giving us really good effort, and they really practicing really hard.
Mickey, what's the opportunity with some of your other receiving options to exploit that situation if opponents do start paying extra attention to what Trey does?
Well, it's probably a situation what I went through at LSU. About the fourth game of the season, they started doubling Jefferson, and then Chase went off, then Terrence Marshall went off, then Clyde Allaire went off. So we're going to have options if they take Trey away. If they try to take Trey away, it's nothing we can do about it. But the other guys know they got to play football if that happens.
Nick, you say Illinois does a good job of sticking to its guns. If you make that a Nebraska discussion, what's that mean? If you're sticking to your guns, what's that mean?
Well, we got to try to score points. We got to try to score points fast. I know everybody want to talk about the time of possession, but the offense scored 37 points, and I can't go to the offense and say don't score in a minute. I gotta let them score. And the defense understands that. So the time of possession was a little off, but I think sticking to our guns, do what we do. We want to throw the football. We want to throw the football, but we got to get Anthony going this week. We got to get him going. We got to get a running game going this week.
For you guys in recruiting and getting out there, and I made a lot of offers. You just talk about sort of where that's going, and your staff just continually hitting it, even in the situation.
Well, like I said before, when I first took this thing over, is that we're going to do things the right way. We're not going to sabotage the program. We're going to go out and work like we're going to be here. So we send our coaches out. I think in California, it was in Massachusetts. I was in Atlanta. I was in Arizona. Fisher's in Florida, Dallas. So we went out. We went out as a staff. We kept the coordinators in, the offensive, defensive coordinators in. But we're going to recruit and find the pieces that we need, And so we're going to go heavy JUCO when it comes to the offensive line,
How big can the JUCO angle be? With the portal era, sometimes if people didn't know exactly what was going to happen with junior college recruiting, but how useful is that still and important, that part?
I think the JUCO part is really important because you're getting the kid coming out of system. You get a kid coming out of portal, he's transferring for a reason. JUCO kid, you're recruiting him just like a high school kid. But a portal kid, he's transferring. There's a reason he's transferring. So you got to do more homework on a portal kid than you have to do a JUCO kid. JUCO kid, you can go to the coach and say, hey, you've been having it for 2 years, tell me about him. But when a portal kid, now we got to go all the way back to high school to see what's the problem with this kid, why is he transferring?
Did you get a chance to see Vance in Arizona?
I did. I had a chance to see Vance and listen to him about his 2 pick 6. So he did a good job. He did a good job Thursday night. I told him he did.
How much have you relied on outside people like him? I don't know if you've talked to Coach O, but obviously he's been in this situation as an interim coach multiple times. What kind of value do those 2 in particular have they had in these 5 or 6 weeks for you?
Well, Coach O, just speaking with Coach O, he always tells me just be myself. Make sure they get Mickey. And he knows there's nothing fake about me. I'm going to be Mickey. I'm not, because at the end of the day, I can go back to Baton Rouge and that nice house in Baton Rouge and chill out. So I'm going to be Mickey,
You got Malachi Coleman this weekend.
I wasn't finished answering that question.
Okay. I didn't know. I'm sorry.
I'm just joking with you, man. Y'all was uptight. But no, you're right. We got Malachi.
Have you had a chance to talk to him?
Yes.
How'd that conversation go?
Well, he said it 6 months ago. He wasn't coming here. So you put the pieces together.
Mickey, it's a little bit of a 5-week stretch here to end the season. What are you looking for in terms of intensity from the team to get through that 5-week stretch?
A lot of energy, but we need to execute. We need with this football team. This football team's a really good football team when we execute in all 3 phases. So we're preaching to them that we need to execute. We need to execute the game plan.
How far away are you in terms of getting to the physicality you are looking for, and has it gotten better as
No,
the
it's
season
gotten a
goes?
lot better. It's gotten a lot better. I mean, I like where they are right now. It's gotten a lot better.
How much better does it need to be to elevate for Illinois?
I mean, it's got to be up there, you know, because they're a physical football team. So we got to match their physicality.
I want to give you a chance to start. You talked to Coach O. Who else?
Well, yeah, you know, Ogeron, he was really good. And like you said, be yourself. And then, you know, with Vance gives you, you know, just the plugs of being a head coach, because he was head coach in Denver and it didn't go so well for him. So some of the things that he said he should have done that I need to do. But he always says, do it your way. He said, because then you won't regret anything if you do it your way.
Is there something that you can share with us that he shared with you about something he would have done differently that you are doing differently?
Well, he shared this, and I'll leave it like this. I'm not going to make the decision if I get the job. I'm not going to make the decision. You know, that's going to be the administration that's going to make the decision if I get the job or not. So I got to just continue to get this team to get better every week and try to win football games.
What conversations maybe have you had in the last couple of weeks with Trev, you know, in the bye week or anything like that?
Just a normal meeting, normal meeting on Sunday, you know. That's it.
Bielema coach teams, what comes to mind first? I mean, are there any defining elements that are consistent over time?
Yeah, facing him when I was at LSU, he was at Arkansas. He's a very physical team. He wants to run the football, but he's physical across the board, offense and defense. He does a really good job with the defense and offensive line. He always had really good players in the offense and defensive line, so you can see that now in Illinois that they have really good players on both sides of the ball in the trenches.
A little bit. They went to a little bit more of the single high stuff, and just made a few adjustments, and then it took a little time to figure out. But also when we started playing, with the full field, we kind of got in a rhythm too. So I think a little bit played into both of those things. But they still did a lot of their fundamental stuff that they do, but a few different looks, and so yeah, we just tried to figure out where we could attack them and kind of made those adjustments. Yeah.
We'll go fourth row, right, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, given your offense, how often do you run into situations like that where everything you see from a defense and scouting is here, and then what you see from them against you is here because with the Iowa stuff, and then you see Penn State give up 400 yards rushing a couple weeks ago. Is that even applicable to what you're going to see from them this week?
I think every week is a different season. I look at it like that. You start from scratch, and you look at where you are. You look where your opponent is. You look at the matchup, personnel-wise. You look at the matchup schematically, and then as you get later in the week, you start to figure out how it fits, what that matchup looks like, and then you do all that work, and then all of a sudden you get to the game, and you may have to take a right-hand turn real fast because of a lot of reasons. It might be the conditions. It might be something that schematically shown up, maybe an injury. You don't know, but every week is different, and you try to do the best you can to identify where you think you can be the most successful week in and week out. And you evaluate the film and try to figure out why somebody may have had success or not success, and you try to forecast the best you can.
Can you spend time thinking, what if they do something differently than what we've seen, or do you just work on what you've seen?
No, that's how I spend probably the 48 hours leading up to a game, is exactly what you just said, and have a lot of sheets of contingency plans in place for what if. And we'd say sometimes you're chasing ghosts, but I've been in games before where we didn't chase those ghosts and we didn't have answers, and that's not a good feeling. So it's our job as coaches to have answers and to put our players in best position to be successful. So that's our job.
Right next door, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, when you're not running the ball as well as you have been this season, how much harder does it make it being pushing in the red zone there? And do you feel like that was the main reason why you guys weren't as efficient as you have been in the red zone?
I think it played a factor, yeah. We could have done a better job. A couple calls you'd like to have back, a couple plays we'd like to have back. We had the penalty down there that hurt us, and just a few things in general. So, yeah, when you have the balance and you're getting 4 and 5 on a run as opposed to 1, 2, or 3, yeah, it makes a big difference.
Right next door, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Kind of along the same lines, Ryan. The offensive line, what did you see that you liked from them on Saturday? What you didn't like? It seemed like that was the first time that you kind of struggled to get a push and run the ball.
Yep. Like you said, there was some good things there. There was some really good protection at times. It was a breakdown of protection. We did some good things running the football. I thought we did a really good job on one play. We had a slip that could have turned into an explosive. We had one that I thought the line did a good job of. We didn't do a good enough job of cracking the safety. So it was a little bit of everything, but there was good and there was bad, and the issues were there. But when you play against a better defense, those issues come to the surface more. So we'll keep pushing and keep trying to address those issues so that we get better every week.
I'll go deep left. Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Coach, I guess I want to ask you about the things that motivated you guys in the offseason. The idea that you're trying to be the tougher team, that you're trying to have that competitive excellence. I know you use that term with us a lot, but how much do you find that stuff is still part of your prep each week? Do you focus on any of that, or is the past so far behind you that you're just locked in where you are now?
No, it's a part of every week. Yeah, we hit on it every week. We'll hit on it again today. We'll hit on it this week. We know that we have to bring it every week, and we knew when we see the schedule going into State College is going to be a huge challenge. Always is. So, our guys understand what a challenge this is going to be, and so we got to have a great week of preparation. And this is part of that competitive excellence, and competitive stamina. Bringing it every single week and going on the road and winning a game like this is going to be huge.
Right in front of him, Jacob Bench, the Lantern.
There on Saturday against Iowa, your defense really led the way there. What did you kind of notice just game planning last week with Jim Knowles and talk conversations that way, just for the defense to step up and have the performance that it did?
Yeah, they identified the areas where we felt like we had advantages and were opportunistic early on, got our hands on balls, created turnovers, and then just kept the pressure on all day. But when you can start off the game with an interception like that, I know it really throws off the offense and can rattle the confidence, just across the board. And it seemed like we kind of were attacking all day on defense, and when you can create that many turnovers, certainly your chances of winning go way up.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Chip was at running back against Iowa on Saturday. What went into that decision, and is that something that's going to be more permanent, or just like a week-by-week basis?
Yeah, we lost TC, for the year, so he won't be available. It's a long-term issue, and he had been doing some good things for us, and so we felt like we needed to provide more depth at that position. And Chip really had come to us a couple weeks ago and just said, "Hey, listen, if you need anything on offense, I'm here for you," which is just the way he is. He's an unbelievable person and great attitude. So, we just felt like the time was right, and so that means EA's got to do a good job of stepping up over there and be the fourth linebacker for us, and we get Taraja back, and so we felt like we had some depth over there at linebacker, and Chip could help us on offense, and certainly has experience of playing last year. So, it's good to get him out there and get him part of the unit, because I think we're going to need him.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1 The Fan.
Ryan, after the pitch count for Jackson, I saw him just talking to Hartline, talking to you. Did he want to go back in on Saturday because of the way he came out? It looked like he was trying to get back out there.
Yeah, he's always been trying to get back out there. He's a competitor, and it's been hard for him not to be out there more. But we wanted to make sure that we kept that number to right about 20, and make sure that we didn't put him out there anymore.
I know you're not going to say too much about this, but it just looked like maybe they were evaluating him for something different than the hamstring. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just the way it looked to me. Is that sort of a yes or no there?
Yeah, there was nothing else other than just the normal evaluations. Yeah.
Over to the right, Don Taberry, WBNS, 10 TV.
Coach, noon kick at Happy Valley. Are you happy it's not a night game at whiteout? And just overall impression of Penn State. How good are these guys?
Yep. Well, no matter when you go into Penn State, it's going to be a challenge. They do a great job with the atmosphere. And our guys, there's still a handful of guys that, that went in 2018, but not all of them. So, we went in 2020, it was different. There was COVID. But we know whether it's a night game, afternoon game, noon game, it's going to be a challenge. Their crowd's going to be in it, and they'll play a factor. So, and they're a good team. You can see what they did last week. You can see what they did all season, and really good coaches, really good players, veteran quarterback. So new scheme this year on defense. We play good on special teams. So we got to play our A game.
Clay Hall, WSYX. Sean Clifford, what's your take on him?
Played a lot of football, and a lot of guys who play that much football, just they have so many snaps under their belt. They've seen so many different things, and that makes him dangerous in and of itself. But he's tough. He's really good throwing the ball. He's accurate. He's made a lot of plays in his career with his feet and with his arm, and so anytime we play Penn State, and certainly with Clifford, we know that they're really good and they can attack you a bunch of different ways.
Did you run across him in recruiting?
We did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, very good player. A lot of respect.
Adam King, WBNS, 10 TV.
Stroud is obviously kind of judged almost against perfection a lot of the times. And when you look at him have a game where maybe things aren't going right in the first half there, how much are you involved? How much do you say, hey, work through that yourself?
No, it's a team effort, and it's a bunch of things that come into play, and it's never just one thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to clean up coming out of that first quarter, especially, and then we did, and that was good. So we try not to panic when things don't go exactly as planned, because we know that that's not always the case. Usually it's one of three things: either you're going to go up early in a game, it's going to be back and forth, or you're going to go down in the game. And based on how you play, that's typically the outcome. So how are you going to react to that? And we were struggling a little bit, but we were getting field goals, and defense was playing good, and nobody panicked. And we started solving the problems and got back into a rhythm there in the second half.
Mentally, do you ask him what he saw on that play, if it's an interception or something, or do you just kind of assume he knows what's going on and let him go back to the huddle?
A little bit of both. There's times where you want to get some feedback, but then also, I think as the quarterback, I know when I played, you don't want a lot of noise in your head. All that work on the front end is done, so you can go play. But then there's also times where you got to connect on some things. But I'm not one to flood the quarterback with a bunch of information in game. I don't think that's a good idea. Let them go play, trust their preparation, and go from there.
Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
Coach, Noah Rebels picked up Big Ten honors this week. He opened the scoring for you guys on Saturday. How important was his performance, and how does he help give you guys a leg up on the competition?
Yeah, well, in that game, we kept the momentum going with those field goals and getting points on the board. And when you play against matchup teams, anytime you're trying to score points, it's going to be big. And it starts with the protection. We certainly know, what happened a few years ago there, with the blocked field goal. So, all these little things add up in games, and certainly field goals matter. And, in this case, it's 12 points, and that's huge, at the end of the day. So, we're going to need that more and more, and certainly as these games get closer, it's going to be important for him to play well.
Far left, Ryan McGee, ESPN.
Ryan, that wide receivers room fascinates me. What's it like in that room? Because it's a group of young professionals, and obviously Jackson hasn't been available, but what's that room like? What does it make them special?
Yeah, I think there's some guys in that room that are very mature. I think when you just get around them, you realize for their age, they don't look like they're 18, 19, 20. They don't talk like it. They don't act like it. They don't speak like it, but they are. And it's pretty remarkable sometimes when you think about who they are as people and just the maturity level of all those guys in that room. I shouldn't say all of them. Some of them still have some work to do. But I think it started back with Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon. And they just brought this certain level of accountability to that room. And then, Chris Olave and guys picked it up over time. And now, you're seeing, Emeka and Marvin and Julian and, really take it over and run. And they started and cut their teeth on special teams. They come in as freshmen, they put their work in, and then kind of show up and play in the second half of the season. And then by the time they get to that second year, they're ready to go. And that's kind of been the blueprint for them. And it's working. But I think you're seeing probably, just ask like what makes them different is just how well-rounded they are. They're physical. They're in the run game. They can carry the ball. They're involved with special teams. They can make play underneath, run after catch, downfield. Pretty well-rounded, and obviously great people.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, with the obvious caveat that we know how good CJ is, it seems looking back at some of his misses, interceptions, it's come when he's been off his spot, not able to set his feet. things like that. When you're a quarterback who maybe isn't a guy who's used to running like some of the guys you've had, how has he worked on that, and how do you continue to work on some of those things that maybe in practice you're not able to simulate?
Sure. Yeah, you try to do the best you can to simulate the game in practice, and that's really important to do. And sometimes we can do that really well, sometimes we can't. I think you've seen him make some plays like the one he scrambled around and made the play to Cade Stover. I thought that was an excellent extension of the play. He threw away the ball at times, which was really good. So, I agree. When you look at things and you have to move in the pocket, you have to keep your balance and you got to keep your feet underneath you. And I think he's done a good job of that this year. But yeah, it's our job to try to simulate that in practice. So what does that mean? Maybe in 7-on-7, kind of flashing in front and making him move his feet. Those are things that we typically do with the quarterbacks.
Right next door, Andy Andrews, Buckeye Sports Bulletin. Yeah, Julian, the last couple games has made big plays down the field on looked like post routes specifically. How has he evolved as a downfield threat as his career has progressed?
Yeah, well, I think he's always been good at that. I remember watching him in high school, and he was always good, big, strong, long strides. He could eat up a lot of ground. He can track a ball very well. I just think you're seeing now the best version of Julian for a lot of reasons. But he kind of came in on a different journey maybe than what I just spoke about, where the freshman and then coming into the second year, he had a couple injuries that derailed him, and so he stuck with it and had an unbelievable offseason. And now you're starting to see the best version of him. And he's strong, he's powerful, he's physical, and he's a presence out there. And you're starting to see the big playability downfield the last, I guess, 3 games.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Just to be clear about Jackson, nothing about his exit on Saturday had anything to do with him not feeling good anyway. That
Right,
was all
right.
pitch count.
Mhm.
So he's still on track to play on Saturday.
That's the plan, yep. Mm-hmm.
Will he be any kind of pitch count on Saturday? Should he play?
We'll see as the week goes on. We'll know more. When you come out of games like that, you got to keep evaluating and see how things go. But we'll keep figuring more stuff out, and by the end of the week, we'll have a better idea.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Ryan, when you guys have a base run play like you guys have with Stretch that is sort of the foundation of your run game, how much conversation is there throughout the week about making sure you're sprinkling it enough to protect that so teams don't tee off on it? And does that conversation or calculus change at all when you're playing a really good defense like you guys were last week?
Yeah, no, good question, because there was a couple of them last week that we got negative plays on, and it isn't so much mixing it up, although you have to mix it up. You want to have things that go up the middle, go to the outside, go to the strong side, go to the weak side, those type of things. But more than that, it's usually just identifying who you're working to. But like you said, we want to make sure we have a good mixture. I think we've had a good mixture. But at the end of the day, if you're good running the football, your best run play should be good just about anything. And we want to put our guys in schematically the best answers and make sure that the numbers are right and the angles and the leverage is right. But I don't think that was the case on Saturday.
When your offense is kind of multi-formational as you guys are, under center, pistol, shotgun, everything, is there a percentage in your head you want to make sure you're around so that you're not always running the ball when you're in pistol or always throwing the ball when you're in shotgun, like a balance there to keep these defenses from, again, teeing off on certain things?
I'd like to be aware of what they're looking at and what they see and what the numbers show. And so that as long as you're aware, then I think, you're making sound decisions. If you have certain tendencies that 80% of the time you do this, and as long as you know that, you call it again, you know what to expect. I think where you get yourself jammed up is when you have a tendency that you don't know about, and all of a sudden you start getting ganged up on. I think that's what's important.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ron, you guys have faced some good receivers this year, like Jaden Reed at Michigan State, but wondering what you think of the collection of Penn State's skill position talent across the board, and just the challenge of that matchup this week for you.
Yeah, a big challenge. The combination of quarterback and wide receiver will be the biggest challenge so far. And like you said, they're good. A good collection of talent, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and the quarterback.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You talked before about.
Of course, it's Ohio State, Penn State. We will have much more on that matchup coming up tonight on The Big Show. Jake Butt joins me, and the former Michigan man also talking about his alma mater's in-state showdown this weekend against Michigan State, and are the Illini the big-time favorite to win the West? All those conversations coming up tonight on The Big Show. But for now, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks for being with us.